Here at home, economic numbers just out this morning show 500,000 new people applied for unemployment benefits last week, the highest it's been since November. Nationwide unemployment now at 9.5%. Maybe it's no wonder then that a recent poll shows President Obama pulling down his worst marks yet for the job he's doing with the economy. Joining us, Democratic supporter Lady Lynn Forrester, De-Rothschild, and Joanne Reed, editor of TheReedReport.com and political columnist for Miami Herald. Good morning to both of you. Lynn, let me start with you. I mean,
Hi.
You see unemployment numbers like this, and yet we hear the president saying it's not happening fast enough, but we are moving in the right direction. Has he made bad decisions? Are we Americans just too impatient? Is it still about what the previous administration did? What's going on, do you think?
No, what I think's going on is that he is pursuing the wrong policies. He's not pursuing pro-growth policies. In the last recessions that we've had, 4 quarters after the bottom of the recession, there have been, on average, 700,000 new jobs created. We are now 4 months out of the depth of this recession, and we are 8 million jobs short of our last peak. That is an outrageous failure, and it's a failure of policy. It's a failure of the president to put confidence into the small businesses and where people who have money will be willing to spend money, to give people confidence that the government is behind the creation of wealth instead of really the distribution of wealth.
They clearly had a strategy. We saw it yesterday, Joy, and with the sort of this kitchen table strategy. He actually sat around a kitchen table with a couple and their 2 kids. Then he moved out to the backyard, and there were 40 of their closest friends and neighbors, and he took questions from them and talked about what he sees as the positive things that his administration is doing. Did you buy it?
Well, you know what? I think, and he repeated sort of the same message when he came to Miami and did a fundraiser yesterday. And the point I think that the president was trying to make is it took 8 years. You know, you talk about 8 million jobs in the hole. That didn't begin when Obama took office in January of 2009. That began with 8 years of economic policies that put us into a job deficit. You know, that bikini graph that shows jobs plummeting throughout 2007 and into the time that Barack Obama came into office. So I think the point that he makes, that it's going to take more than 19 months to climb out of a hole that took 8 years to dig, I think that's a valid point. If I had a criticism of the administration, it would be that maybe they didn't prime the stimulus in the right way in terms of putting the infrastructure jobs, the visible jobs, the things people can see up front, because people are really reacting to the fact that they don't see in their own personal lives the changes that have been made. But
Lynn,
the
is
fact
that what
that
you think
firemen
is
are still
happening
working
here, that people aren't reacting because of what's happening to them personally?
No, I think it's because we have wrong policies. From 1993 till 2000, President Clinton created 15 million jobs in this country. And in 1993, he went to Congress and he passed the deficit reduction bill. He said we cannot have, at that time, $470 billion of deficit. Right now, we have $1.8 trillion. He cut the deficit. He understood that the markets needed to have confidence that we, as Democrats, we cut the deficit, that the era of big government was over. But it didn't mean that we had a government that didn't care about the needy. It meant that we had a free enterprise government. As President Clinton said, a government that steers more than rows. Let the private sector, let the genius of American entrepreneurial spirit take over, not the sense of entitlement that President Obama always talks about. You know, he talks about our need to give. That is true. But you know what? We are people who create. We are people who build. That's what made America, America. And I am a lifelong Democrat, and my biggest disappointment is that this Democrat is messing with the sauce of American goodness, American greatness. He's making us feel like our government needs to take care of us.
It's interesting, too, to see what the perceptions are. And we just have 30 seconds, but Joanne, I want to ask you about this new Pew Research poll. Nearly 1 in 5 people think President Obama is a Muslim, way up from 2 years ago. And most people say they learned from the media he inserted himself into the mosque debate. How does this hurt him? By the way, only, I think, what was that, 34% know he's Christian.
Right, and that's interesting because the seminal sort of controversy during the campaign was that his Christian pastor, Reverend Wright, mouthed off. But if I can just say one quick thing about the last comment that was made, I think we should recall that 1993 budget raised taxes, and we now have a Republican Party that's refusing to participate in a coherent tax debate. They'd like to put us another $600 billion in the hole by extending the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest people. Tax cuts are what we pursued under George W. Bush, and obviously it didn't work because we are where we are. But on the Islam issue, I think the president showed leadership in his initial comments. I think he said the right thing. And if people are uncomfortable with the idea of the mosque, that's fine, but that's where leadership comes in. There is a right under the First Amendment for that mosque to be there, and I really don't understand why we shouldn't follow the Constitution as the right is constantly admonishing us to do.